Hi Digital Chiefs, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about fundraising consultants. What do investors really think about them? Should you hire them or should you not? So first of all, what is a fundraising consultant? A fundraising consultant tends to be someone who puts together some of your fundraising pack, information, and then goes out and pitches investors. Investors that they might actually already have access to, they've already built a relationship with, or perhaps doing research and finding some brand new ones that are more relevant to your particular business. And then they could actually be part of the entire journey, sitting down, having the meeting, following up, and actually closing the actual investment amount. Really just depends on what kind of fundraising consultant that you hire. They could just be early on in the beginning, getting your investment pitch deck ready, getting your deal room ready. They could just be doing the middle part where they're doing introductions and then you're following up, or they're actually just closing the deal, coming in and closing the investment, getting all the legal documentation ready, and then chasing up the investment checks. So it really does vary. Make sure you understand what kind of fundraising consultant you're speaking to and which part of the journey they're actually taking care of. So that's your first tip. Now to the important point, what do investors actually think of fundraising consultants? There's only really two camps that investors fall into. One, they hate them. Two, they don't mind them. There's not really a third group that loves fundraising consultants, and that will make a lot of sense once I get through to the end of this video. Those of you who've already taken my fundraising workshop, you'll sort of understand why that is the case already. If you haven't taken my course, links for that are located below. So let's go over why an investor would be interested in investing in a startup. It really comes down to 5 key categories. So number 1, the market size, i.e. the size of the potential market for your particular solution. Number 2, the product. What are people willing to pay for the product or the problem to go away? Number 3, the team. Why is this the best team to actually build the solution? Number 4, money. What is the valuation and what is the amount that you're looking to raise? And number 5, momentum. Momentum is, well, how quickly are you growing? Is there actually demand for your product and service? It's probably somewhat obvious now. One of the criteria is the team. If they're not really getting to know you through the fundraising process, getting to know the team, how resilient they are, how responsive they are, then it's probably not likely that they will be wanting to invest, given that investors do understand it is a 7 to 10 year journey for an exit. So having a fundraising consultant can sort of act as a bit of a barrier for them to connect with the team. It might not be an actual barrier that you perceive, but they will certainly perceive it. So understand that this is what the investor's just going to start feeling. If they don't feel like they have a direct line of communication with the founders, then this is going to be problematic for them to do due diligence on you, to build that relationship with you, to actually trust you with their capital. There's really only 2 kinds of fundraising consultants. The first one are just consultants that have never worked for a startup, never worked in a startup, never actually raised a lot of capital, never exited a company. They are just consultants, professional service providers. They might have specific expertise that allows them to connect with investors, but they really don't understand the journey and the relationship between an investor and a founder. And therefore, a lot of those consultants won't really have the respect of the investor. So the second camp are really fundraising experts that have actually invested their own capital. They've actually exited companies. They've sat on advisory boards for these successful companies. Even failed companies is useful as well. I suppose they have actual proper startup experience, having experienced the journey. They've able to close multiple rounds and really get through to the exit, gone through that sort of 5 to 10 year journey with that particular founder and that particular company. So while they tend to be a little bit more respected, they are still seen as a little bit of a barrier to the actual founders. A lot of my comments are quite generalized. Can you find a great fundraising consultant that's well respected, that's never actually invested their own capital? Absolutely. Perhaps they've actually helped a company exit. Perhaps they've actually closed multiple multiple rounds and never actually put their own money in. But they tend to be the very few 10% of fundraising consultants out there from what I know. Fundraising consultants are also not that common in the US. I think culturally in the US, a lot of people understand how to pitch for capital, how to pitch for investment, how to pitch in general, part of their culture. I do find there are a lot more consultants in Asia Pacific, specifically more fundraising consultants that actually charge quite a hefty commission and fee up front. I've actually seen quite a few startup founders not really do very well out of them, paid hundreds and thousands of dollars and not gotten the service they expected. One of the first things you really should do is, like hiring an employee, make sure there are KPIs. Make sure you're actually vetting the fundraising consultant. What have they fundraised in the past? Can you speak to founders that they've successfully helped raise? And then founders that ideally they haven't successfully fundraised. Fundraising is a bit of a journey. It can take quite a bit of time and sometimes it doesn't work out. So make sure you do your reference checks. Make sure you have a proper contract in place. The key performance indicators, are they related to a fee, an upfront fee, and then a commission of some sort? Or is it purely success fee based? Make sure that's really clear. Make sure you also put in, well, how long is a time frame that they will have to fundraise? 6 weeks? Is it 6 months? And specifically what duties they'll take care of. Are they actually just getting your deal room and pitch deck ready? Or are they doing introductions? Are they doing follow-ups as well? Are they actually closing the round and making sure the check is in the bank? The tasks themselves are listed, the KPIs are listed, any specific timeframes that might relate to that. For example, if they're doing all the introductions, well, how many introductions? How many of them will convert? What's the amount they're fundraising? How quickly are they meant to follow up each time an email is sent to an investor and that investor replies? You don't need to go everything line by line, but if it's important to you, then you should perhaps put it down in writing. Other questions you might ask this fundraising expert: are they actually fundraising in a similar sector to your particular business? Do they actually have investors that are interested in your product and solution? If, for example, you're working in fintech, but they have only really raised from medtech startups, probably not a great fit unless they can actually vouch for the fact that their network will fund both. What is the founder meant to deliver as well to make sure the fundraising expert is supported? There'll be multiple questions that investors might actually ask you. Whose job is it to follow up? If the founder has to go out and get information, what is the timeline that they must deliver something so that the fundraising consultant can actually respond to that investor? Good fundraising experts will have to make sure that they maintain these investor relationships regardless of your startup doing well or not. They usually are part of a network and a community. They will need to go back to these investors for later investments, even if your particular deal doesn't work out. If they emphasize that you need to be responsive with certain materials, then you need to make sure you commit. And the last thing really, in addition to working out the payment terms, what happens if there's a conflict? What happens if you guys don't get along? If someone drops one of their KPIs? What does the termination clauses look like? How do you separate if it doesn't work out? If they fail to fundraise, you fail as a founder to actually get back to them. If the circumstances of your startup changes and you no longer need to fundraise, or you need to change the quantum of fundraising, make sure you have some of these clauses that covers different scenarios so that no one is stuck in this contract. You both can actually move on. You might actually decide to go out and fundraise yourself instead, or this particular fundraising expert can make sure they take on other clients. Next part of this video, I'm just going to cover the red flags you should look for. 1, anyone who is too keen to do your fundraising round. I know that sounds a little bit contradictory. Good fundraising experts will tend to have a really long line with people that they've either previously fundraised for, or reputationally, they're just really good at getting deals done. So if they've not spent some time getting to know you and getting to vet you as a founder to make sure you're worth investing in, that tends to immediately be a red flag. If they're already straight away charging a fee and they haven't spent any time vetting you before they take you on board. This is part of the reason why I don't actually fundraise for a lot of founders. For me to actually spend the time to vet founders and then go out and fundraise through my network, it would just be really expensive. Another red flag is they don't concentrate on certain kinds of fundraising, do all sorts of round sizes, all sorts of locations. Should ideally have some sort of focus area when it comes to fundraising. Should reflect their network and their expertise. Investors in their network that they're going to be pitching, if they have no sector expertise, if they haven't seen a ton of deals in a similar area, well, how will these investors trust this middle person? This one I've sort of already touched on. Can they give you a list of founders they've fundraised, whether or not it worked out positively or the round didn't close itself? How many deals do they do a year? How many get closed? What's the quantum? Yet another red flag is look at their communication. Their communication is going to be reflective of how they communicate to investors. How responsive are they? Are they professional in the way they deal with you? If they're going to be representing you, you want to make sure whoever is responding is actually representing you in a professional manner. So if they're not responding in time, if there's spelling mistakes, it just demonstrates a lack of professionalism. I don't think that's acceptable for an employee, let alone anyone that is representing you when it comes to investors. Another flag is if they're taking a massive upfront fee or charging by the hour. Accountants and lawyers will tend to charge by the hour or have some sort of retainer. I think that's quite acceptable for that particular service, given that it's quite a finite advice, if you like. Fundraising is a little bit fluid. It depends on how many investors they have to pitch. Some sort of fee and then commission tends to be a good structure. If they're asking for just one massive fee up front, tends to not driving the right behavior. You do want to pay a little bit of a fee up front to make sure that they're taking time and taking the risk to bring you on board as a client. They also are wanting to deliver the big results, a huge fundraising close, so they get a commission of some sort. So this last one is a little bit contradictory of the point I've just made. Fundraising experts who just take a large commission at the end. Usually these folks have not done a lot of fundraising, doing the spraying and praying approach. They will have a list of investors that they frequently spam, hoping a couple of them will actually invest. They don't really value their time and therefore don't really value the time of the investors they're pitching. If you are going to use someone like that, they will just burn through VC contacts. They'll go through investors quickly and not present you professionally. Again, it just depends on how well you know this fundraising expert. They might actually just be doing you a favor and just taking a large commission at the end. That's perfectly okay. So hopefully that gives you some tips on hiring a fundraising expert. The fact is, founders do need to actually be very hands-on when it comes to the fundraising journey. You can't just delegate it out and expect this person to solve all your problems with fundraising. Needs to be an obvious relationship with yourself and investors over the longer term. Many fundraising consultants don't last. They burn out between 3 to 4 years from what I can tell. Good ones will be doing it 5, 10 years consistently. The same rule applies if you are actually delegating fundraising to one of your team members. I see emails from business development and investor relations people are looking to pitch investors. I think that really is the wrong approach. You can certainly have someone send the emails. The founder should be signing off on the emails. You need to be front and center of the transaction. Ideally, unless you're sort of a Series C, Series D company, your brand is already well recognized. When it comes to early stage, like most of you, it really is quite important that you're out there fundraising. Even if you have some middle people that you manage, you should be the one that is the main contact and you should be signing off on everything. I still remember several times where I sat down with startup founders and their fundraising consultant was also there, and this particular consultant just didn't know anything about the actual business. if you are hiring a fundraising person, that they have what they need to actually go out and deliver a compelling pitch for you, and then you're taking over the relationship as much as you possibly can. I'm probably a little bit more forgiving when it comes to fundraising consultants. I know that most venture capitalists, most investors have a really extreme hate when it comes to fundraising consultants. Keep that in mind as much as you can. Make sure you are the main contact person. There is no perceived barrier between you and the investor wanting to access you. Delegate some of the work, but make sure you are very much the key driver in the whole process. So hopefully I've given you a few things to think about when it comes to hiring fundraising experts. What about you guys? Have you actually hired a fundraising consultant? Has that worked out for you? Are you a fundraising consultant yourself? What do you recommend if you've actually been fundraising for other startups? Are there any key points that I might have missed? I'd love to hear your stories. Feel free to share your tips as well. Thanks, and see you again.